All right, my name is John Will. Here we are with part 2 of using Quik Rock. The second process being seaming the rock base once you had already screwed the pieces together, which we talked about in part 1. We're here at Mid-America Taxidermy in Minneapolis, Minnesota with Brad Reddick, who is the creator of the Quik Rock, one of the top taxidermists in the upper Midwest. And so we were at his shop with a mountain lion base, a floor base, which in this situation we have wood branch coming out of the rock structure. And what I did was just simply cut up several pieces of the Quik Rock. As you know, it comes in a 4x8 sheet, weighs less than 50 pounds. And we cut up several small pieces, and I'm just taking them and setting them on the base initially just to kind of get a feel for how I want that base to look. Keeping in mind, we want to keep angles going with the rock. We don't want to have a real boxy looking base. I call it the doghouse look. And we want to try to use really as little bit of rock as possible. Some bases obviously have dirt and rock coming out of it. This is going to be a completely rock base with this driftwood branch coming out of it. You can see the base of the mountain lion. We have 2x4s and some plywood, and the animal's all set on there to give us a reference for how we want the rock to look. And basically with the Quik Rock, like we talked in part 1, you can start out by putting the rock underneath the paw or cut a slit in the rock and slide it underneath. You know, pretty much your preference on that. And from there, once I have all my pieces kind of cut up and I kind of know how I want them to look on the base, I'll get my cordless screw gun and 2 to 2.5 inch screws, and we'll start putting a minimum of 2 screws in each piece on the base. And then after that we'll do the seaming, which is what this part is all about. And so thanks for joining me, and stay tuned. Here we are. Jeff is working on the base. We have secured many pieces, 2 screws per piece as a minimum. Just give them a little tug, make sure they're all together. I just want to show you the progression of this base on this mountain lion with the driftwood coming out of the rock. And pretty soon we'll be getting to the point where we'll be doing the seaming. It's easy to get discouraged at this point because with all the gaps, it's hard to kind of picture what the whole rock base will look like. But over time, once we put the seaming compound in and blend in the rock, it's always amazing how nice it ends up turning out. All right, Jeff is continuing to work on the base. You can see it's coming along pretty nicely. And you know, this whole process, the amount of rock that we're actually using on a 4x8 sheet, you could probably plan on getting for sure 2 floor pedestals for like a life-size sheep or a goat. On a mountain lion like this, it's definitely less than a half of a sheet that you would use, just to kind of give you an idea how much rock you would use on a base. Okay, here we're at the next step with the Quik Rock. We made our base out of rock and pieced it all together, put the screws together. We tested every spot, made sure it was really secure. Now the next step is simply to take some crumbled up newspaper and fill in some gaps. We've taken small pieces of rock and filled in some gaps. Now we're going to take some crumbled up newspaper and fill in some areas so that when we put the seaming compound in, we won't have the seaming compound falling through the back side. Very simple, and it shouldn't take us very long to do that. And that'll be the next step we'll work on right now. So we could just take some paper and we're going to just crumble it up in any deep crevices where we think the compound will fall through. We're just going to take and shove some newspaper in here like that. And some crevices you probably don't even want to put newspaper because rock has a natural, many rock structures have natural crevices that you want to still maintain. So I'm just going to go around like this and put some of the newspaper in here. And you can kind of see what I'm doing here. It's not hard and it goes fairly quickly. After this, we're going to mix up some seaming compound. As long as we're on the topic, what I use is it's a setting type joint compound. Looks like this. You can get it at Home Depot or Menards in the building section, or you can use a generic brand. This one happens to say Durabond 90. Durabond is this particular brand. It has a very good bonding agent in it. 90 is the set time. It comes in a 45 or 20-minute set time. And for mountain projects and trophy rooms, what we do is commonly use 90-minute set time, giving you more time to work with it. Otherwise, a small project like this, 45-minute set time is good. And we'll mix 1 part of the joint setting compound with 1 part of drywall, basically cellulose, attic insulation, shredded paper. Mix it up kind of like an oatmeal setting. And then we will put it wherever the crevices are. We'll build out the rock in different places, and remembering to kind of feather the seaming compound around the edges as we go along, and kind of basically build out the rock. We've already anywhere the rock has been cut with the knife, with the Sawzall, we're going to fill that in, covering up all the screw heads, of course, and then we're going to texture the seaming compound. There's a lot of different things you can do. I like to use tin foil, or aluminum foil rather. When the seaming compound starts to dry, take some aluminum foil or maybe a rough brush or even another piece of rock and texture the seaming compound as you go, and then take like a butter knife or some kind of a sculpting tool and create other cracks through the seaming compound where the rock might seem like it has a need for a crack through the structure. So that's what we're going to do. First, like this, and we'll put some water, slowly add water because you don't want it to get too runny. You want it fairly lumpy, and then we're just going to start working it into the cracks, keeping in mind again, try to keep the seaming compound off as much of the rock surface as possible, because Quik Rock has a very nice, those of you who have used it, it has a very nice texture on the rock, and we want to maintain that, the integrity of the rock as much as possible, and only put the seaming compound in areas that needs it. Any area where you see cut foam, that has to have seaming compound, because when you paint it, the foam, if you don't, the foam will actually absorb a lot of the paint greater than the surface of the rock, and it'll stick out. So, all right, so here we have the seaming compound in my hand. Here you can kind of see, just kind of mix it up like an oatmeal consistency or Play-Doh, and you don't want it too runny, and you want enough paper in there to give it the texture that you need to kind of help create that artificial rock look. So we're just going to start putting some on the base. Get a couple guys to help you if you want. Make sure you have your rubber gloves on. Make sure you cover all the screw heads, of course. So I'm just throwing it in here, starting on, I'll start here in the front. And you'll get the idea. We have this branch coming out of the rock, like you can see in some areas of the country. So, and just take, when you put the seaming compound on the rock, just take your finger and pull the edge of the seaming compound right onto the edge of the rock, so you get it to blend in. You don't want it to look lumpy, and you're basically just kind of replacing what you cut out of there, that's all. There's another screw head up here, just go ahead and hit all those. Now remember, some of the crevices you might want to just leave open. You'll get the idea real quick. And like I mentioned, this will dry overnight, I would say, before you start painting it. So just take it and texturize it, just push on it, you know, and just go around the seaming compound like this and give it some texture. Rough it up a little bit, basically. That's all we're doing here. And then we will take my sculpting knife right here, and I'll say, okay, there's a crack line coming across here. We'll just take our little tool and just continue some crack lines, you know, through the seams and, you know, down around a crevice somewhere. Up on the top. Wherever, for instance, I think we can see it on the video, there's a crack line going across here and it continues on to this other piece of rock. So I'll just take my little sculpting tool and go across the seams, and you'll get the idea real quick what we're trying to accomplish there. It's amazing how a little bit of aluminum foil can really make a difference in giving it the look you want. And then before the seaming compound gets a little too dry, I'll just take one last look over the whole base and look for any lumps that I might have missed or rushed through it somewhere. I don't like how it looks, and just kind of clean it up a little bit. Okay, we've just finished our seaming and texturing of the rock base, and this is the final step prior to painting, and I think it turned out very nice. One last thing we do is take a water-based polyurethane sealer or shellac, or not even do anything. Some guys don't even seal it at all and just hit the seams. I like to hit the seams 2 or 3 times so that when you paint it in part 3, the paint absorbs evenly on the entire surface of the rock.